Today I am working with the Holtz Sizzix Bigz pumpkin patch die. I wanted to do a video that had a Thanksgiving option and a Halloween option. And I love these Bigz dies because they can cut through such thick material. And I also, for the Halloween card, will use that Sizzix die that is called Frightful Faces. And in the cards for Thanksgiving, I use this pad from scrapbook.com, and it's by Snap. And on the back of the paper, it was cool. There were dots and grids and notebook lines. I also will use this Sizzix Bright Ons paper, and I bought that recently off their website. And I'm always pulling this. It's Lindsay Cerati. It's a die that I purchased off Sizzix.com on sale a few years ago. Not sure if they use that. They have that anymore. So I used Distress Oxide for all of the inking on the pumpkins. And the tall pumpkin here, that light color is antique linen. And then I used Vintage Photo for the brown on both of the stems and the brown behind the antique linen on the tall pumpkin. I used I think it's called Robin's Egg, one of the new Distress Oxide colors for the shorter pumpkin, and then ice spruce behind the pumpkin on that piece of paper to give depth and dimension. Here I'm just measuring out the Sizzix paper, the Bright Ons. I chose it's like an iridescent cream color. And then I chose from the Snap paper pad. It was the first piece of paper in the pack, and it's a off-whitish, creamish color. It's gorgeous. I initially bought this Snap paper for Christmas cards because I thought it would look cool, like a door or a barn, and then put a wreath on the front of it. So that's the next video I'm going to move on to. But I still wanted to get one more Halloween card and a couple more Thanksgiving cards before October was over. So here, just lining everything up and just arranging these pumpkins. I pulled out a burlap pad to have like a base for the pumpkins to sit on. And I just trimmed that on my tonic trimmer. And I would guess it was maybe 3/4 of an inch. I didn't really pay attention, just I kind of eyeball stuff. The card I used, I believe, this is a smaller one. I may have written down the size. I may have measured it and written down the size. Seems like maybe 5 by 6. The next card I do is an A7, a standard A7. So because of the burlap, now I can't see everything on this screen for the voiceover, but because of the burlap, I wind up having to kind of place the foam tape sporadically on the pumpkins so they sit level, and you'll see in a moment. On the next card, I don't use foam tape, but I still have to use paper to kind of bump up so they stay level on the paper pad. And just a note, when I inked these, I wasn't really thinking about doing a video. I was just kind of seeing, I wonder if these would look good in the new colors they're doing this year, pinks and blues and white pumpkins. And I thought they looked great. And I thought, wow, I need to share this. Somebody else might want to pull this die out and get some use out of it, because I've used this die once. I made a Halloween card with it, and then I didn't do anything with it last year. And I thought, you know what? I have these dies. We all have these dies. We need to get them out. We need to use them. I mean, we can still buy new stuff and add to it, but some of our favorites, we need to get them out and use them. So anyways, got it out, used it, thrilled with it. And the burlap pad I got from Hobby Lobby. And it was a pretty standard, I think, paper pad. I think it's die cuts with a view, but I'm not positive. And then I use the Tim Holtz Distress Medium Glue. I think it's called Multi-Matte Medium. And just kind of trying to get all my adhesive on there. This probably was the most time-consuming part of this card, trying to get everything on there so it was raised up and level, but it wasn't hard. Very simple, pops down. And then if you do this card, you need to leave space for the overlapping pumpkin, and you'll see I'll take a pencil and kind of make marks on the back of the pumpkin where I do not need to add any sort of foam or paper. It doesn't need to be raised at all because it's just going to rest on that tall pumpkin. And I added a little bit of glue to the foam tape, even though it was secure foam tape, just because of the different levels, and then the paper was on the burlap, and I just wanted to make sure that if it went through the mail, it would stay intact. So the way you make those pumpkins is you cut your pumpkin from your Bigz die, and you can keep the slats in it. You would just need to either tape the paper before you cut it, if you're thinking, which neither time did I do that, but you can then replace the little pumpkin ridges, I'm calling them slats. You can replace them back in there and tape them from behind. You could ink them, then tape them in. There's so many ways to do it, whatever you feel is the most comfortable for you. I cut the pumpkin, and then I traced around the pumpkin and cut inside my tracing without the stem and just made a backing, and then I inked my backing. I hope that makes sense. So then when the darker color was complete, I glued the finished color on top. You know, as I was making this video today, it did not occur to me that I didn't ink this on camera, so I apologize for that. So I use this die all the time, that Rachel Bright die from Sizzix. I know it's retired, but I use it all the time. And I wanted to use another piece of that Bright On's paper to have the Thankful for You, so it would kind of pop. The gold was pretty and the gold popped, and it would have looked nice, but I just thought it needed just to stand out, and there was plenty of space on that card. And see, the one thing I love about the Bigz dies is how large of a die cut you have. And it takes up so much of the card that it's really easy to decorate the card. You don't have to do that much when your die is so big. This is a Nuvo glue pen. There's lots of different glue pens. I kind of made a mess on my craft mat there, tracing the back of the Thankful for You, but I got it wiped up real quick. I spared you guys from having to watch that. Nobody wants to watch that. That's boring. But just wiped it off with a baby wipe, dried it with a paper towel, and went on. So glued this on, and that card is done. I'm not sure, I might go back and put a little burlap ribbon, like a little piece of twine, a bow with a glue dot on top of one of those pumpkins. So here I'm showing the colors I used. So my short pumpkin, I did like my tall pumpkin in the first card. So I used that antique linen and then the vintage photo. On the back of the pink pumpkin, that's worn lipstick, I used the antique linen. So on both of these, they're 2 pieces, the die cut, and then kind of a small piece to cover the back of the die cut so you can see where the ridges are for the pumpkin. The paper pad I just pulled out. First I'll do this. This is the A7 waffle flower rectangular dies. And this is an A7 just standard card. The paper pad is by Prima Marketing. It's called Pumpkin and Spice. And that is that pink and plaid. That's what I did most of my Thanksgiving cards with this year. And I made a video of that. The papers are stunning. They are gorgeous. But, you know, if you don't have that in your stash and you've got this pumpkin, there's so many things. You could use an embossing folder for a background. You could use other papers that you have. You could find another plaid paper, match the pumpkins to that plaid paper. But the pink and the blues and the creams are so pretty this year that I really wanted to see if I could do it myself with the oxides. And it was a piece of cake. I mean, piece of cake. And I had a blast. And I think you will too. So I just stick this down, and I did not use burlap this time on this card. I kept it a little flatter, and I just used craft cardstock. Just cut a piece. You could emboss it. I was just trying to make these as simple as possible to kind of encourage people to pull these dies out. Oh, I do emboss it. But you don't have to emboss it. Sometimes I make things too difficult, but I just love this stuff so much. It's not difficult to me. It's fun. It's just amazing to me what you can do with a piece of paper. It's crazy. So since this wasn't as long as I needed it and going in the direction I wanted it to go, I just embossed my strip, turned it right side up, don't flip it upside down, turned it right side up and embossed the other part of the strip. And because it's wood slats, I honestly couldn't tell where it began and where it ended. Measured it, placed it on, and it looked really cool and gave some dimension. But because I gave it dimension, I then had to put a backing on those pumpkins to have them sit flush with the card, because I ink on Bristol board and Bristol board is thick, and then that craft stock underneath. And remember, those 2 pumpkins are double pieces of Bristol board. It sounds more difficult than it's very simple. And I will ink the Halloween card at the end. I put the Halloween card at the end because I had not started it. So that was what I put behind that pumpkin to give it a little height and make it level. Was just I had run my Bigz die and wasn't paying attention, and it was crooked on the die. So whenever I make a mistake, I always save those mistake pieces, and those scraps, I wind up using them. So that worked out great. It was a happy accident. Glued that to the back of the pumpkin, and these guys sit straight. And this is a very, very sturdy card. Between the craft stock and the Bristol board, this thing will mail fine. So I do the same with the smaller pumpkin. Just trim my little mess up and stick it down, and my accident becomes worthwhile. I think these are really great cards, and I hope this encourages people to get these dies out. These dies were released. He had a huge release that year. I think they were released 3 years ago. I'm not positive, but there were a ton of things released that year. I remember not being able to get everything because there was so much good stuff to choose from. And this dye, I mean, normally you can find anything on eBay or Etsy, but I do not know if this dye is available anymore. With that being said, if someone has this dye and doesn't want this dye, they should definitely list it on eBay or Etsy, because I'm sure there's people out there looking for this dye. So I'm just getting on my getting on my adhesive on, getting them placed down. They just place down like a dream. Just weighting them down just so they don't, once that glue adheres, I mean, it's down for good, and it only takes, I don't know, 10 seconds or so for it to kind of meet with the paper and bond. So it's nice to lay something on top if you're using a thicker paper. If you're using a thin paper, you don't need to lay anything on top. So just adjusting and getting everything right with this pumpkin. And I really cannot 100% see. Okay, I popped these stems up on these with my foam tape. And it's just Scotch foam tape that I purchased from Target.com. And then I put a lot of glue so they would stay down. I probably go a little overboard with the glue and the adhesive, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Look how cute they are. The Thankful for You on this one is in craft. And I already had that run off, and it was on my craft desk. So then I used that same paper from Sizzix in the same, it's like a sparkly iridescent cream. It's really pretty. It looks great by itself, but there was room up there, so I thought it would be nice if it stood out on a label. And I used that same Nuvo pen. And this time I put a little piece of scrap paper underneath it so I didn't make a mess on my craft table. So just lightly put some glue on there. And I will say that Sizzix paper was very slippery to adhere the sentiment to. But it adhered, and then I glue it down. My glue bottle is starting to get a little empty. Stick it down, and then this card is done. And I made these quick, and I made these simple, and embellishments could easily be added, and I think would look lovely. So then I wanted to do a quick version of a Halloween card where you take the die and you put the frightful faces in them. And then it looks like jack-o'-lanterns. So it takes a pumpkin. Those are just all the colors I used. They were all Distress Oxide. And I have the marmalade, spiced marmalade. And there's my Strathmore Bristol board. That's what I always ink on. And I always get a real smooth, there's the Bigz die. I always get a really smooth finish with that Bristol board. So I just take the whole pad and put it down there. Get a lot of ink on there, and then I smooth it in. It would have taken forever to have tried to come in from the side and be careful with it. And that does not sound like fun. Here I was just trying to make sure I had enough ink to cover that Bigz die, and I needed a little more. And the ink I will dry with my heat gun. I think it's the paper I use. It takes it a while to dry. And I put a piece of plain paper, just like really flimsy cardstock, in front of it so it wouldn't get ink on my Bigz die. And it wound up holding those pieces of pumpkin in place, because here would have been the time you would have taped the back so that you don't have to carefully tape it like I do after it's been cut. But either way, it worked. And I have a hard time thinking one step ahead. I usually just do and then catch up. So I actually used Tim Holtz tissue tape to tape that stuff all down. And I was pulling piece by piece by piece. And then on the second pumpkin, I thought, why don't I just pull one big piece and then tear it? That worked much better. So I made a Halloween card, I think it was 2 years ago. Whenever I bought this, it was either 2 or 3 years ago. And I made these 2 pumpkins in a pumpkin patch, and it was really cute, but it was really time consuming. And I thought, you know what? Not everybody has time to do that. So I want to show people you can make a quick jack-o'-lantern, put it just on like black cardstock and craft cardstock. All you have to do is ink the pumpkins and then drop in those frightful faces. And I don't know, maybe the card took 20 minutes. I don't know, 20 total. I don't even know if it took that long. As I went very simple, orange, black, and white. And then on a craft card. Just me being very particular with all of my tapes and glues. You do not need to do as much as I do. I go back and watch these when I'm editing, and I think, well, you could have saved yourself a little time by not being so particular. But I am confident in the fact these are going to stay stuck together in the mail. So look at all these faces you get. Oh, this die set because I Googled it to see if it was still available. It is still available. I saw 3 or 4 places have it. And I noticed scrapbook.com, if this was one that you want, they had it on sale 50% off. So I think it was like $9.99. And I looked it up today. So here I just picked, I love that grumpy face on the short pumpkin, and then the little like spooked face on the tall pumpkin. So I chose those 2. They're the least threatening of all the little faces. They're not frightening at all. And then ran it through the Sizzix, my big shot, and voila, all done. They're just so cute. Like, that little pumpkin is completely over it. But see how the tape held everything together? And if I had initially taped it, just taped out the whole Bigz area, it would have saved me some time. So the black card is an A2 card. That's how fantastically large these dies are. So I get out the A7 die and my A7 rectangular dies. Get out the A7 dies and the A7 card, and then I needed to get a larger piece of black cardstock. So I do a piece of white on top of the craft, and then I do a piece of black on top of the white. Very simple, very easy. And this waffle flower A7 die set, I don't use that often because I don't that often get to do such a large card, but it's very handy to have when you are doing a large card. Because I'm not that good on a paper trimmer to get things exact, so dies really help me. So just going to adhere down my white, And my ATG gun, that is new to me. I've had it maybe a week, maybe two. I purchased it on Amazon. I love it. I know that some people don't love the gun. Once you get used to pulling the trigger, you might really like the gun. I was just having trouble with those smaller tape dispensers. They would jam, they would not completely adhere. I was just having trouble with those, and it's probably the way I apply stuff, or maybe because I use so much. So, and I always have that bone folder handy. I like my cards to be crisp. So put on my Tim Holtz glue so it will stay in place. I mean, all you have to do is the orange distress ink on white paper and your pumpkin's done. I just had a little spot I missed. And you don't even have to do the eyes if you put it on top of black. You could do the eyes. I mean, you could change the eyes and make glitter eyes or satin eyes or whatever, glow-in-the-dark eyes. But I just wanted to do a few cards with this die because it is so pretty, and I just don't see people use it that often. And I myself don't use it that often. So since I've had more time at home, with the year 2020, a lot of us are at home a lot now. I've just really started focusing on my cards, and it always puts a smile on my face. So this is, I think, Tiny Sayings or Small Sayings, Tiny Sayings. And it's a Tim Holtz stamp set. And there's a Trick or Treat on there, and that's the one on the card. And then there's also a Happy Halloween. So this is a nice set, especially if you're just getting started. This was one of the first stamp sets I purchased because I needed sentiments for all my cards. And he has almost everything covered. The only thing's not on there, I know Happy Thanksgiving is not on there. But I think Thanksgiving is not a holiday that a lot of the companies cover in a big set. I think they leave that to the small sets that are specific to that holiday. So just cut that out with, it's just a flag die that, it's not a brand name or anything that I remember. It's not any sort of brand name. It's just something I picked up off eBay. When I was first starting my cards and I wanted flags, and they really held up and they work very well. So I didn't even pop it up on any foam tape. I stuck it down just to kind of show everybody how simple this could be. Maybe this card took 15, 20 minutes. It didn't take that long. If you did a bunch all at once and formed an assembly line, you could probably shave it down to 10 minutes card, because you'd have everything right there, everything inked up. It would be fast. And I might embellish this, but I really like the simplicity of it. So just going to put Happy Halloween, and then my card is finished. A lot of times I don't do this step, and then when I go to get the card out, it's not done. And I'm like, oh, I've got to go get my stamp platform, because I can't stamp without a platform. Because you'll see, I go in 3 times. I don't think I apply enough ink. And I see people do videos and just one stamp and they're done. And I think, how on earth? So all 3 are complete, all with the same Bigz die, pumpkin patch. And I hope this encourages people to get that out of their stash and make some last minute Halloween cards and some Thanksgiving cards. Oh, and I do at the end of this add another. Okay, this card was the first card I did with burlap pumpkins, and then I put craft behind the pumpkins. And I thought it turned out lovely. And then I started inking pumpkins, and I thought, these are turning out really pretty. I should put this on a video to kind of maybe spur people's imagination with what they have. This is a Tim Holtz. Seems like it's like a French industrial paper pad. And all I did was cut out a square from the 4-square page, and it had diamonds on it. So then I pulled out, of course, my diamond embossing folder, my Sizzix diamond embossing folder, and those black strips. I'll show the embossing folder. That's what I got the texture for those on. And I tied a little bow and used that Thankful for You, because that's the only Thanksgiving sentiment that I have like that. I have a Happy Thanksgiving stamp and that Thankful for You. And there's the embossing folder. And after this, I add, to show the frightful faces, this card I made, I think I made it like in August, and I mailed it to one of my close friends. It's coming up right now. This is an example of how you can use the frightful faces. And this is all distress and distress oxide. Very simple to do with a rectangular die. And that's what I made. So thanks for watching. Here's a small recap. And next up, Christmas cards. So thank you so much for watching. Click subscribe. And I appreciate you spending time with me. Talk to you soon.